Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outside the Studio. I hope you are enjoying the new format of our podcast. Please let me know if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions. I do like to hear from the audience so that we feel like we're not speaking into a vacuum. Hello, is anyone there? Hello, hello. Jamie, Ernie, how are you two today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, it's been quite a year so far. It's been a little bit more busy than I'd like it to be, but here we are nonetheless.
Glad to hear that. Thanks for having us today, Tessa. Jamie, have you had a busy year so far?
I don't know about busy, but the January gloom is definitely just getting to me. Which basically, well, my strategy for January and for winter always is basically just work and hunker down, just to like try to distract myself from like the rain and whatnot. Because Pacific Northwest January is just, although the sun it's starting to clear up though, and the mornings are starting. As a barista, I have to wake up pretty early, so waking up not in the complete dark is always a plus. So.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Amen
good.
to that.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of rain out there in Hood River? I always pictured it a little bit more sunny than
That was
I
my
don't know.
question.
Yeah, I don't know in comparison to Portland, just because it's been a while since I like lived in Portland, like during like the winter and everything. But I think in comparison, it gets, I think, slightly less. But like yesterday, I drove out to the Dalles and it was like sunny, as could be. So I think it's kind of like it does get less rain than like Cascade Locks, though. I think because I think Cascade Locks is like drenched all the time. So
yeah.
Okay,
Cascade
my
Locks is very
question's
green.
better. I want to
what?
know about rain versus snow.
Okay, yeah. Well, we definitely like last week we got over a foot. I think it was like 13 or 14 inches. And that's just like this is like I live closer to the river, so like I don't know about like closer to the mountain in like Parkdale and whatnot. But yeah, snow, lots of snow.
So
But if you
Hood
get a lot of
River
rain, does it
must be
melt it?
able to.
Go ahead,
Well,
Tessa.
yeah, it
Go.
does melt a little bit. Well, I mean, there's still piles of snow everywhere. It's more just like everything's kind of flooded. You know, if you want to go anywhere. I mean, just like it's just slushy. But I heard Portland iced over. It was like an ice rink.
Yeah, it was. It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was so funny to watch the forecast every day, and you never really know what to actually expect because sometimes the media gives some outsized predictions and nothing happens, but this time it definitely did. It just felt like it kept like extending further and further out than it was supposed to. Anyways, weather aside, I know last month in January we talked about the new year. And I was thinking, we talked a little bit about like intentions versus resolutions. And I know, Ernie, you're pretty passionate about the subject of intention setting. And so how's it going with, intentions? And I remember, Jamie, you said you're not a fan of resolutions, but I can't even fucking remember what you did say.
Well, you started talking about that, and I was like, I did say that I'm not into resolutions, but what am I into then? Because I don't even remember what I said. But for me, I think I always like to try to start or like try out new routines, just like as like a general thing, because I just like to switch things up. I feel like just having one thing, I grow it. But one thing, well, like my main theme right now is trying out everything, like not feeling that I have to do everything, but having it's more about my mentality shift of like, oh god, I have to do everything, but now it's like I'm gonna do everything that I can, and just have more of like, rather than a master of one, just have like, or how does this? Because there's more to that saying where it's like a master or a jack of all trades is a master of none, but it's better than, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like just dabbling. That was my whole thing of like, rather than just sticking to one thing, I just want to try out everything. So
yeah, I do now remember you did say exactly that. Thank you for the reminder.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a month in between
Totally.
chit chats is too long.
Yeah.
Ernie, what's your update? What's your sit rep?
Well, at work, I get to lead an opening. We call it mindful meditations or mindful moment. It's supposed to be kind of a help for our employees to remember to take some time for themselves, and just little things we've done. But this last month, I talked about resolution versus intention, and it really kind of helped solidify like what Jamie talked about last time, and about a resolution is about being committed to an outcome, but an intention is being committed to a process. And so destination or journey was how I thought about it. And I thought that's why I think a lot of the resolutions fail, because when you say something that's very concrete and you're tied to that, every day I'm going to do this. And if you don't, you miss a day, then technically you failed. And it's really easy to think that way. Not that you did, because everybody misses a day, right? Like, I'm not going to go running every day, or I can't do this every day. But if they miss it, it's really hard to recover from that, because then you're like, I wanted to do this every day. I'm going to do it for a week straight. And you missed one day. A lot of times it's easy to see it as a failure. But when you follow the process, then every day is a chance to smooth out and reinvent or update or modify the process. And I thought that was a good reminder for me. So I like that, because I started to think, what can I do different every day and not get upset when I think I've, quote, failed.
Yeah.
So it's been going pretty well.
That word failure is such a, I don't know. I wish we could replace it with something else in our vocabulary. Not just, I don't mean like you shouldn't say it. I just mean it's such a harsh way to consider something that even if you did set a resolution or you do have an intention, and I love the invitation that it is a process and a practice, and the idea that it's about the journey, not the destination, is such a helpful reminder to me. Because just like anything that we do, what was that quote I heard yesterday? This is Harry Cohen. The practice is a practice. You know what? I'm going to look it up really quick because I wrote it down. Oh, no, I didn't write it down in here. God damn it.
Well, while you're looking for that, I feel like one thing that sometimes people kind of look at me funny when I say this, but I'm actually, whenever I start something new, or I have like a new goal, a new intention, resolution, whatever you want to call it, I'm a big fan of putting my expectation really low, actually, because I think that leaves a lot of room for forgiveness for yourself. And also, when you have like a low expectation and you exceed it, that gives you more of a mentality of like, oh, I did complete this. Like, it gives you that little check mark of being like, I accomplished this one. Maybe it was a simple goal and maybe it was really easy, but that doesn't mean that you still didn't accomplish it. And I feel like that gives you the mental like momentum to then go and set a further expectation.
Yeah, I love that.
To succeed. So
thank you, Jamie. Okay, I think I got it. And this is from memory, so it's not exactly a direct quote, but it's the idea that what you practice makes you good at what you practice, because there is no perfect. And so it's the idea of setting aside this, like with an intention, if you don't do it every single day to the rules and guidelines that you have set forth, then quote unquote, you're a failure. So practicing makes you good at what you practice, with the idea in mind that there is no perfect destination to get to. So you're practicing for the sake of practice, which is another yogic precept. So I want to talk.
I just want to say one more thing, though, real quick, Tessa, about that, because it's a good one. The one thing I thought about, though, is there are times for resolutions for the destination, but it's a matter of context, right? If I want to do 1,000 setups, I'm not going to do 1,000 setups every day, because if I don't, I'm going to fail. But if I said something like, every time I go to the gym, I am going to do this, then it's dependent on, if you go to the gym and you do it, then you succeed and you have a better chance than if you just leave it at this, I'm going to set aside 30 minutes and meditate, as opposed to every day when I think about my practice, I'm going to do this. So, because I get what Jamie's saying too, there are times for resolution, but most of the time it's an intention, but sometimes a resolution to the destination is not necessary, but it works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a goal in mind, like running a marathon, you absolutely have to have that set. Like, you have to do the work I
Mhm.
mean, sure, maybe you could show up on day of without having done a lot of prep work, but that is a specific destination in mind. It's time specific. It's dependent on you doing the work to be successful in that. So yes, absolutely, there are times for resolutions and very specific guidelines to meet your goals. Absolutely. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about our guest today. We have Matt Monroe joining us on the show, who is the co-founder of the Cultivator Club, which is a club. Cultivator is spelled with Cultivate8R. And Matt will talk all about that and what it is on the show. But I mean, in a nutshell, this is a podcast about mushrooms. And it's like Jamie so eloquently wrote, action packed. And mushrooms, I love mushrooms. And not everybody's a fan of fungus, but I think they're delicious. Matt and I talk a lot about the neuroprotective qualities of mushrooms. There's a lot of research being done right now that has a lot of apparent neuroprotective qualities to it. So that's kind of exciting to hear about and think about. And yes, we do dive into the realm of magic mushrooms and mushroom foraging and fun police stories about mushrooms. And so I just, doing this episode with Matt was great fun because he's a wonderful human being and a good friend. But also it just kind of had me reliving my own experimental days with mushrooms. Now, when I say that, I mean the magic variety. And I also do love to eat nutritional mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. And when I say that, I mean just like a crimini or a shiitake. And it's not always about being in an altered state, folks. So I was curious to hear from you, Ernie and Jamie, if you had any experiences, thoughts come up about mushrooms, magic or otherwise.
Can't get enough of like just regular like nutritional mushrooms. Cremini is usually what I go with because I'm usually on a budget, but I love shiitake, oyster. I have tried lion's mane. They're all great. They're just I can't get enough of them. I feel really like blessed to have such also like during the summer such access to them. I personally don't go out foraging for them. I have with other people. With one person I went with, we did find like a few, and they were what's the popular ones that everyone goes crazy about here?
Chantrell, not Chantrell. Morels.
Yeah,
Morels?
morels. Yeah. We found a few of those. Other times we've gone and we haven't really found anything, but even that we didn't find any of them because, like, as the podcast goes into, be careful about what you find and what you pick and what you have and whatnot. Go with someone who knows what they're talking about. But nutritional, like just regular mushrooms, I love them. I can't get enough of them. And then in terms of like magic mushrooms, I've had the opportunity to experience them, but I haven't experienced them because I wanted to make sure that I was in like I was with people that I really trusted and like in a really comfortable state. And being of like the college age means that you're around of other college age people who are taking them, and they're typically taking them in, some rando's basement. And I'm like, I would rather have it be like a summer day on a hike, sort of thing. Something like that. So I haven't had the privilege to venture out there with that, but yeah.
I love that. Ernie, thoughts?
Well, I like the nutritional kind a lot. I think that it's interesting to listen to Matt talk about it, and I like that it felt like through the course of it, and there are a couple of people that do it really well when they talk about something they're passionate about. This is one way to do it. It's not the only way. This is not the cookie cutter one answer, right? Everybody does mushrooms, or because it doesn't work for everyone as well. And I liked how that kind of came through, and but it was a good reminder about just a practice. And so like it would be easier to eat nutritional if I went to the store more often and got fresh produce, because I go now and then, or I go once a week and I get everything, and then when they're gone, they're gone. Or if I don't remember to use them, then I wait till the end and they're not as fresh. So but I do like to add them into cooking and use them a lot. I, I, I applaud Jamie for being that bold, because if I would have to be with someone who had just come off the college classroom floor and given a dissertation for their PhD before I would trust a couple of my friends with a shovel saying, "This looks good, let's try it," you know? So anybody that goes
Totally.
out and picks their own, I'm like, hats off to them, because I, I, I don't know if I could get past that. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I feel like with the morels I've heard are a lot easier to identify just because they're so um or they're just so prevalent here, and then also like they're very specific, and I've heard that like in terms of there being a misidentification with them being another mushroom is like relatively low. But yeah, for example, I've gone with two people, and one person I went with what is much more has like a lot older. They've done their research. I don't think they have like any sort of like they like taking classes on it. That's, so that's like one thing. And then my other friend who is much younger, much more just like going out into the woods, sort of thing. I didn't say anything, but in my head I was like, if we find anything, which we ended up not that day, but I would be like, oh, I'll probably just admire from afar, and and whatnot, just because there is that serious risk of like, there is misidentification, and if you don't know what you're talking about, it's a serious risk to, pick something off the ground and just shove it in your mouth. So,
Yeah.
and that's just a risk that I'm not willing to take right now. So,
Yeah.
especially since I personally I haven't taken any classes, I haven't even perused a book, on the subject. I was more there for the field trip and the experience rather than the actual like I'm here to forage for my dinner tonight. That was more, I just wanted to see, like, because everyone goes crazy for it here in the Pacific Northwest, and I was like, oh, I just want to know what's up. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Do you
I like that a
remember,
lot.
you guys, we were backpacking last summer and we met a couple, and I think the wife was talking about foraging for mushrooms. Like she said she saw someone in the forest, and do you remember this? What did she say about that? Like people
I
were
think I do
really,
remember this. She was from the Czech Republic, right? Was
yeah,
it that couple?
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I think it was on everyone's foraging spots, and how
yes,
that's very like I was told, like when I went with both people that I went with, they were like, don't tell anyone that this is where I forage, because it's very like it's very like, because you can only harvest so much from a spot in a specific amount of time, and it's just so competitive right now, that people are very secretive about. And then once one spot gets found, like you'll just see like everyone, coming out of the woodworks, hunting out for
yeah.
those little guys. So
Matt talks about how to forage and learn how to forage in a really respectful way. So I'm excited. If you all listening are interested in going that direction, as Jamie said, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Jamie, please, please, please do your homework. Be safe. Don't just listen to some podcast and think you know everything there is to know about being able to go out and forage for your own mushrooms. But be safe. We are not
totally.
the experts.
Yeah,
And
I feel like I should also add that disclaimer here, because I feel like I didn't start out with that. Yeah, I did before going out there, I had no homework. I personally did not know anything from anything. I could like look at a mushroom and be like, that's a mushroom, no idea if it's edible, but that doesn't mean that I was going to put it in my mouth. Like I I had one person that I went with that I trusted, and even that, if I got sick from that would be on me, because that's me trusting someone else. That's not me doing my own personal homework. Whereas like someone else that I went with, I already in my mind had made the distinction of like, I am not going to eat anything that we find if we do, because I personally am not confident in the research, because I haven't personally done that, and that's a very, very important thing, and it's a risk that you take. So
yeah. So please be safe. Enjoy the podcast. Do your homework. Ask good questions and take care of yourselves.
Mushroom Matt. I'm,
Is this,
I'm
do
just a
people
guy.
call you that?
No, thank God, no. People do call me the cultivator, though, which is kind of interesting. And
Well, I mean, let's talk about the cultivator.
certainly.
I mean, what is it?
Well,
Who is it?
oh boy. All right. Let's back up just a little bit. Hi,
Okay.
folks. My name's Matt Monroe, and I'm the co-founder of a company called the Cultivator Club. And at this company, we do a multitude of things. We teach people how to grow their own mushrooms at home. What kind of mushrooms? We're agnostic. You want to grow golden oyster mushrooms? And by the way, I have a tub right here. It's a little bit past its prime, but about 3 days ago, these were just absolutely beautiful, ready to go in the skillet. And I held off on harvesting them just so I could have them camera ready. And of course, they've kind of faded. But anyways, I'm agnostic. Yeah. Golden oyster mushrooms, fine with me. If people want to grow psilocybe mushrooms, which are basically mushrooms that contain psilocybin, I am totally cool with that because, what's a good way to put this? I am an advocate for mushrooms without being an evangelist for mushrooms. Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely does.
Yeah. I personally believe that mushrooms can make the world a better place, and that mushrooms, and let's address the psychedelic elephant in the room. I believe that psychedelic mushrooms and microdosing is good for most people, not for all people, and there are definitely people who should not do it at all.
How would you discern that if one were going, who am I?
Who am I to decide whether I should be doing this or not?
Exactly.
If you have a history of bipolarism in your family, mushrooms are probably not a good idea. But here's the thing. If there's a history of bipolarism or severe mental illness in your family, you shouldn't be touching mushrooms, but you shouldn't be drinking alcohol. You shouldn't be touching weed. Cocaine's a no-no, all of those things. Basically, you don't want to be messing with your brain if there's an instability inside of your head or the potential for that instability. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that no one's ever really floated that point before in the podcast. And we've had several people talking about microdosing and using entheogens for healing.
Sure.
So not just psilocybin, but MDMA, ketamine,
ayahuasca, Amanita muscaria.
Yeah.
Again, I'm an advocate, but I'm not an evangelist. Evangelists are true believers, and they have the faith even when the evidence points in a direction that is completely the opposite. Instead, I'm all about evidence-based. I believe probably about 60% of the population would actually benefit from microdosing. I also believe there's 10% of the population that shouldn't get anywhere near it. There's another 10% of the population where microdosing, it makes them tired. And well, if it makes them tired, use it as a sleep aid and have awesome dreams.
Sure.
And then there's another zone there, 10, 20% where, they microdosed and it's like, it did something, but I don't know what. So it's like, okay, fine. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to.
Hopefully not, right?
Hopefully not. Yeah.
So I'm curious because, as we're preparing for this interview, which has been a long time coming, we've been talking about doing this since I think it was like
May or June.
May or June.
Yeah.
And so I realized that you have a similar kind of concern. We share a similar concern in terms of longevity.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Aging with grace.
Absolutely.
And your father had early onset dementia. My mother has it. My grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And so the microdosing, I know from our conversations, can, and you say evidence-based, so can help with dementia.
So I'm going to jump in and say, first of all, I am not a medical doctor. I have no background in medicine. Everything I'm going to say here is my opinion. It's also based upon a N=1 study, that N=1 study being me, and also just talking with a lot of people. The evidence that I have seen suggests that microdosing can help offset early onset dementia, can help offset Alzheimer's disease. This does not mean it's a cure. This does not mean that it is an absolute preventative for all people in all situations. And again, research is still being done right now, but the research that is out there has been extremely positive. And this goes not just microdosing psilocybin or whatever psychedelics, but you can also look at other mushrooms like lion's mane. There is extremely strong evidence that lion's mane mushroom is a neuroprotective and can offset, let me back up there, I guess it would be offset or slow down the onset of early onset dementia. And this is a real concern for me. By the time my dad was the age that I am now, he had onset. Boy, I'm talking good today, aren't I?
I have days like that all the time.
Man,
you're in good company.
I should have microdosed this morning, and I didn't. I know.
We should do round 2 on a microdose.
Actually, that would be really interesting. That would be genuinely interesting.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, by the time my father was the age that I am now, man, I mean, he had early onset dementia. He was actually aware of it. He would say to me, Matt, I can tell that my brain is just not working the way that it used to. Which, I don't think a whole lot of people who have that condition, they have that awareness. And he could feel it. He could feel the slowdown. He could feel that grasping, that grasping for words, that inability to talk good and stuff.
Yeah. I wonder about that being a willingness to recognize and acknowledge and say out loud something that we're all very scared of. My mom, like, for example, I think she's terrified, and I'll see her catch herself in those moments where she's kind of checked out or the disease has taken hold, and she'll notice it, and it's almost like she'll try to cover it up. I think it's fear.
So she notices it, and then does she move on, or does she say anything too, like, oh, my brain's not working the way it used to?
No, she'll go, oh, that's right, ha ha ha, silly me, and she'll kind of play it off like
that's fear kicking in.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I wonder about people like your dad. Sounds like an anomaly in the way that he was forthright with you.
Oh, he was incredibly honest about it. He was just a really sharp guy. And I just think because he was so sharp and he had an awareness of just how his brain worked, that when it started to slow down, when there were those gaps in thinking, those gaps in conversations, it really stood out to him. And I have to tell you, it really bugged him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 40 and it terrifies me. It's scary.
I'm 60.
Yeah, but I mean, I have those moments, and I wonder, I've read a lot about when it typically starts. I think around 60s is when most people experience the early onset of dementia. But I mean, how long has it been there in the background, kind of?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And then just how much does lifestyle contribute to that also?
Exactly.
I mean, okay, I love my coffee. Actually, the evidence seems to be that coffee's pretty good at maintaining brain health.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
And how many cups a day do you drink?
Oh boy. I am at least a 3 cup a day kind of guy. And I'll do 4 or 5. And I'm also coffee agnostic. I just like coffee. So, if I'm driving down I-5 and I see a rest area and it says free coffee, I'll pull over and get, the bad church social coffee just because, coffee.
You just love it.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So does that affect your sleep?
A little. Sure. I do try to stop after about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And, I've been doing this for years. I mean, okay. Part of my life, I was growing up in Detroit, Michigan, and Detroit has Greek Town. And one of the greatest things about Greek Town is Greek coffee. So my parents would take us to Greek Town. We go to a Greek restaurant, and, little 8-year-old Matt Monroe was guzzling cups of Greek coffee.
How would you know does it taste different? Is there sugar and milk and all kinds of
it's ground super fine. And so it's ground super fine. It is super strong. It's basically served in an espresso shot cup or shot glass.
Okay.
And I would say it's about half sludge. But there's just, I don't know, there's something about it that even, when I was 8 and 9 years old, it just appealed to me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it just gave me that little tingle.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if you can't see the podcast, Matt is holding a coffee cup that says coffee is my spirit animal. And I just love it. So if you want to watch, if you want to see the cup, watch this on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can catch a glimpse of it there.
Yeah. And there's a whole lot of directions we can go here. I'm actually surrounded by all sorts of show and tell items. So, I mean, if people want to jump onto the video version of this podcast, I mean, I've got a colonized grain bag here, a bag of grain that has been completely myceliated with mushroom mycelium. Oh, let's see. We've got the faded golden oyster mushrooms right here. I've got a tub right here, and when I lift the lid, you can see that the mycelium is completely coating the top. And this
What's
will probably
underneath it?
well, so underneath it is what's called substrate, and substrate is basically soil for mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
So in a weird way, this tub is almost like just kind of like a pot for mushrooms. And the way this is, I don't know if this will show up on camera. Probably not, but there are these things that are called pins. Pins are tiny baby mushrooms, and they're about the size of a head of a pin.
Is it that little black dot? Because I think I can see it.
Oh,
If so,
I see one. Oh, yep, right there, right there, right there, right there. Yeah, so when you start seeing pins, that's a sign that you're going to have mushrooms. And usually, well, it depends on the species, it depends on the strain, but you're looking about between 1 and 2 weeks before the tub is filled with mushrooms. And when I say filled, I mean, again, you have to be on the video portion of the show, but
it's a pretty large piece of. I keep wanting to call it Tupperware.
it kind of is Tupperware in a way.
It's a large tote.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about cultivation of
absolutely.
mushrooms, because this is kind of like your special sauce. This is what Cultivator Club is about, right? Teaching people how to grow their own mushrooms.
Teaching people
right?
how to grow their own mushrooms. And we do sell mushroom cultivation kits, but we really believe in the concept of community. And I hate to say that word has become a cliche. Actually, I don't hate to say that, because in some ways that word has become a cliche, but I feel as though we genuinely mean it. I mean, there's so many people out there. We came out of the pandemic and a lot of folks just kind of got derailed and disconnected. Yeah. And, along with our mushroom cultivation courses, and our kits and all that, we actually put on quite a few events. In fact, I did a teaching session. I live in a suburb south of downtown Portland called Lake Oswego. I did a teaching session at one of the local shops here 3 or 4 days ago. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we put on the Future of Mushrooms Unconference, and we basically want to bring people together and get them engaged in conversations. And sure, the initial topic of discussion is mushrooms, but you get a bunch of people together in a room, and the conversations go off in all sorts of different directions. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I remember hearing you tell me about your unconference. This was before you were getting ready for it. Can you describe to me how that setup was?
Oh, it was fantastic. So first of all, we all know what a conference is. You get together in a big room, there's a stage, and just about every hour on the hour, there's somebody standing on stage pointing at a PowerPoint screen and, I don't know, whatever the topic of discussion is. You're going to have 5 or 6 people during the course of 5 or 6 hours up on that stage talking to the screen. And I have to tell you, by about hour 2, most attendees are just ready to stab themselves in the eyeballs with a fork or something, Now, on the other hand, and let's just call it a conference. At a conference, once people head off into the hallways or go off to the coffee station, that's where the magic happens. That's where the conversations are. That's where the connections are made. Okay. Well, in unconference, you don't have anyone standing on stage and talking at the audience for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. You have a host. And in this situation, it was me. And I basically laid down the ground rules. The ground rules were, hey guys, you're all here to talk about mushrooms. Pick some aspect of mushrooms that you're interested in and then just kind of go off to your own little room and have a chat. And at first, it's a little confusing because people aren't used to being told, oh, just go off and talk with people. But after a while, people realize, oh, this is the way to do it. This is the way to have conversations. This is the way to have connections. And at our most recent unconference, we had two of the folks from OHA, the Oregon Health Authorities. These are the folks who basically lay down the ground rules for psilocybin regulation in the state of Oregon. I didn't invite them. They actually just showed up on their own. Uh-huh. And, as these breakout sessions were taking place, these folks are experts. They were contributing. They were basically putting in their expertise to outline what they knew and what they had seen working at the state of Oregon. And they were fascinating conversations to the point that I went up to them and I said, hey, you guys are great. So glad to have you here at the unconference. Would you be willing to do and ask us anything during lunch? And they said, yeah, of course. We're here. We're here to educate people. We would love to chat with folks. So everyone at lunchtime, we had a ton of pizza. Oh, we had so much pizza. It was crazy. We had a ton of pizza.
Any mushrooms on that pizza?
We did have a mushroom vegan pizza. We also have Pop-Tarts because I love Pop-Tarts. I really do. I love Pop-Tarts. It's a weakness.
And those little biscottis that you get on, not biscottis.
Biscoffs.
Biscoffs, that's right.
If you're on an Alaskan airline flight, you get the Biscoffs. Those are so good with a cup of coffee.
Yeah, whenever I see those, I think of you, Matt.
Oh, thank you. Anyways, everyone just basically just kind of, am I allowed to swear here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They just kind of shot the shit with the folks from OHA. Mm-hmm. And, they were like, hey, what are the upcoming regulations with psilocybin? What, Oregon people, what do you like about the regulations? What don't you like? How can we affect change? It was a phenomenal experience. And
are you at liberty to share any of those insights or answers to those questions?
Here's what I saw more than anything. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of confusion. And there are folks who, what's a good way to put this? Folks have been so misinformed that they're really disconnected from just what is and isn't legal. Now, perhaps you've heard this yourself. Perhaps you've had people say to you, oh, I've heard that psychedelic mushrooms are legal in Oregon. That's awesome. Have you heard that conversation or heard statements like that?
I haven't, actually.
Oh, you haven't? Oh.
No.
I've heard that.
Okay.
God, I hate to say this. I went to my 40th high school reunion back in Michigan. Okay. And I had several people there who knew me. They knew that I was like the mushroom guy. Yeah, the mushroom guy. And quite a few people came up to me and said, and this is almost a direct quote, it's great you live in Oregon because mushrooms are legal there. Okay, folks, let's have a talk. Psychedelic mushrooms are not legal in the state of Oregon. On their own, psychedelic mushrooms have been effectively decriminalized, but decriminalized means that it's not a priority for the police or the legal system. But again, not a priority, still not legal. Now, they are legal in licensed facilities administered by licensed facilitators. But again, licensed. You can't just go running around, like with a baggie full of mushrooms and go shrooms, and, expect to get away scot-free. Or this will resonate with all the folks in Portland. You can't expect to open up a brick and mortar store on West Burnside called the Shroom Shop, where you're selling Golden Teacher and Malabar Coast and Penis Envy mushrooms and all that, and expect to stay in business. And you know the story there, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. We went to visit friends in Toronto last December.
Sure.
And similar story. It's decriminalized. But there are a few shops that kind of still operate anyways because they make more money than they would if they didn't operate. And so they get shut down and they pay fines every once in a while, but then they'll open up again. So we visited this shop when we were there, and it's like how marijuana was when it first started to become decriminalized and then legalized. And so I just thought that was interesting. And it feels like, I guess my question to you is, what do you think about the future of
what a great question. Okay. This is just my opinion. 3 to 5 years down the road, on the west coast of the United States, mushrooms will be effectively legal. Okay, on the west coast of the United States. Probably the same is true in Denver, possibly Michigan, New York, probably much of coastal East Coast. You will never see mushrooms legalized in Idaho or Alabama or Arkansas. That's just not going to happen. Okay, so let's say we have legalization on the West Coast. Let's say Washington, Oregon, California, possibly Nevada. Okay, great. What does that mean? Are we going to have a dispensary like on every other block selling mushrooms? No, we're not. And there are economic reasons for that. There's also physical reasons for that. There are a lot of people who kind of have a wake and bake mindset with cannabis. You know what I mean? They get up, smoke that joint, whatever, or they're comfortable doing edibles every evening. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. The reality is you can do cannabis every day. It might not be good for you, but you can do it every day, and people do it every day. Mushrooms, you can microdose every day, but if you're the sort of person who's doing mushrooms on a recreational or, let's say, for purposes of journeying, basically having a major psychedelic trip, you literally can't do them every day. Your body just gets acclimated to them. You build up a tolerance super fast. Well, if you can't do them every day, you lose a huge customer base, don't you? So you can't have just the cornucopia of dispensaries as we have with cannabis. I mean, you're here in Portland. You can't drive more than 5 or 10 minutes without running into a dispensary. You're not going to see that with mushrooms. The other thing, and this goes back to economics. All right. Here's it's kind of a faded tub of yellow oyster mushrooms. If I went to the grocery store and bought yellow oyster mushrooms of any sort, they're going to be about, I'm going to guess about $15 a pound, maybe with inflation, or if you're at like one of the higher end shops, maybe $20 a pound for an edible mushroom. Well, guess what? The technique for growing psychedelic mushrooms is not dissimilar to the technique I use to grow these. So effectively, your real cost to grow psychedelic mushrooms actually works out to about $15 or $20 a pound. Okay, well, where's the economic model if you're going to be selling mushrooms by the gram? A pound of mushrooms is, what's a pound? 450 grams roughly?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think so. I think a pound is roughly 450 grams. So, if you look at the base economics there, a gram should cost, what is that? Like 50 cents, 20 cents, something like that. There's just, the only way to really make it work is to have an extremely limited number of dispensaries and also to keep the price artificially high. The workaround, of course, and it's the workaround I recommend, is just growing your own mushrooms at home. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for doing that. Reason number 1, safety. If you're growing your own mushrooms, you know what you're growing. If you, let's say you're one of those folks who pops onto Reddit and you DM ShroomBro420 and say, hey, I really would like to get like a gram of golden teacher. You don't know what ShroomBro420 is going to send you. Or let's go into foraging mode. Hey, a little more show and tell. This is, and it fell apart like literally minutes ago. This is Psilocybe allenii. This is actually one of our native psilocybin-containing mushrooms here in the Pacific Northwest. I actually picked this about an hour ago, about a half mile from my house. This species grows in some parts of Portland, and there are other psilocybe mushrooms that are literally in every park in this city. This town is basically awash with psilocybes right now. Here's the problem. So I'm going to hold this up to camera. Look at that. It's basically a kind of brownish, kind of caramel colored mushroom. There's a lot of brownish caramel colored mushrooms out there. One of them is called Galerina marginata. Okay. It's really easy to confuse Galerina marginata with this psilocybe. That's a big problem because most people like their livers. And if you eat enough Galerina, you are going to kill your liver and you will be in need of a liver transplant within about 2 weeks of consuming the Galerina. So again, this goes back to safety. You are absolutely safe growing your own mushrooms at home. Myself, I'm comfortable foraging and I know exactly what I am and I am not foraging for. And when I look at a mushroom, I confirm with myself, I confirm internally, yes, Matt, this is a Psilocybe allenii, or this is a Psilocybe azurescens or cyanescens, whatever. This is absolutely, positively not Galerina. Because again, I like my liver. I'm rather fond of it.
How can you be sure?
Oh, good question.
I mean, I know you're sure that you like your liver.
You know what?
I believe you.
Let's re-examine that for a second. I don't know. What has it ever done for me besides, well...
You just cleanse and detox in general.
Yeah. By the way, quick pause here. I'm getting hit with this beam of sunlight.
I see that. It's right there on your forehead. Do you need to change the...
I don't...
Do you have a shade you could pull down or
There
something?
isn't a shade. So I might have to just sit a little further back from the laptop here. But I'll move the mic towards me.
Sounds good.
Okay. So how do we differentiate, let's say, the psilocybes from Galerina marginata? First of all, listening to some guy talk about it on a podcast is not going to make you an expert. It is not going to give you those skills to actually save your liver, but I can give you a general overview. All our native psilocybes have dark spores. And when I say dark, I mean either jet black or purplish black. So if you have a mushroom that you're unsure of and you think it might be a psilocybe, take the cap, lay it down on tin foil, and then put a cup over it and let it sit there overnight. And then take the cup off, lift up the cap, and if the spores are jet black or purplish black, you possibly have a psilocybe. You for sure do not have Galerina because Galerina has kind of these kind of brownish, rusty spores. Okay. The other thing about our native psilocybes, I don't know if it'll show up on camera or not, a little bit. They have what's called a bluing reaction. Basically, their stems have psilocin in it. Psilocin is a psychedelic alkaloid. In fact, it is the primary psychedelic alkaloid that is responsible for journeys. Psilocin oxidizes and gives a bluish tint. And I think you can kind of see a bluish tint on the stem.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Okay. You're looking for that blue. A lot of times when you crush them, the reaction is almost immediately. It will go like blue within a matter of seconds. That's a good sign. Galerina will not turn blue. Now, again, I want to reiterate, don't be listening to a guy on a podcast describing something and say, oh, I now have the skills. Yeah. The best way to gain skills with mushrooms, and boy, that light is just nailing me, isn't it?
It's not too bad. I mean, unless it's bothering you. And is it too hot?
No, not at all.
Does it feel like a laser beam?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Oh, and what was I going to say? What was I going to say there? Psilocybes, bluing.
Well, I think you were kind of going towards...
See, I should have microdosed.
Yeah. Well, I think you were going towards the realm of... how do you educate yourself around this? Because
okay.
Don't listen to a guy on a podcast and think, okay, now I'm an expert. I can go forage or order off the internet.
Right. And
how do I educate myself truly?
And I'm hesitant to even recommend books because here's the thing with books, there are color shifts, there's lack of information. I find that there's just not enough detail with books to go, oh, this one's Galerina and this one's a psilocybe. The way I learned to identify mushrooms, and this is where social media actually has a genuine benefit. I would get on Instagram and I would find the people who were active foragers, and I would follow them and I would comment And I would just say, hey, it's great that you're finding these mushrooms, or, oh, that's a beautiful photo. And I would do it to the point that I became recognizable to them. I was not just, Joe Schmo. And once I had been commenting and basically become familiar with these folks, or they had become familiar with me, I would DM them and I would say something to the effect of, hey, my name's Matt. I'm really interested in the mushrooms that you're foraging for. It seems that you really have an expertise. I would like to go out foraging with you. Here's the thing. I absolutely promise not to reveal your foraging locations. Okay? And I make that absolutely clear. I promise not to reveal your locations. I promise not to take any mushrooms. Now, okay, let me rephrase that. I promise not to take mushrooms. I promise not to remove mushrooms from your foraging area. And then I also promise I will buy you lunch and I will buy you a full tank of gas. I have never had anyone say no to me. Never. And so I've gone out with all these foragers and they've basically shown me the ropes. They've shown me the habitat where these mushrooms grow. They show me the mushrooms that I'm actively seeking, the psilocybes, and they also show me the poisonous mushrooms. And by the way, here's something kind of crazy. Gallerina marginata, that mushroom that will kill off your liver, it grows in the exact same habitat as most of our psilocybes. In fact, I have seen them growing right next to each other.
I wonder why that is. One's poisonous and one's...
Yeah, it really is strange. And they look a lot alike.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Huh. And I don't know if you're part of any mushroom forums on Facebook or anything like that. There are various forums where people post photos of the mushrooms they've collected. And of course, people are actively seeking out the psilocybes because people want them. And I've seen so many Gallerina photos on Facebook where people basically post it and say, hey, is this the right one? No, it's not the right one. And don't even think of taking a nibble off that mushroom.
Yikes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's why I think that's my deterrent is I'm like, how can I be sure? And even when you were talking about how can you be sure? Well, you can grow it yourself.
Grow your own. That is how you're sure. Or you go off with people who are experts and they show you the ropes. They show you the habitat. They show you how they themselves test. Again, spore prints, look for the bluing. And, it's not worth losing your liver over.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I was curious about, so we had this conversation in person. I think I was explaining to you that I was microdosing and struggling with the different effects that I would have because I was just taking a little bit of a cap and I was measuring it. I knew I wasn't taking, it was definitely less than a gram.
Well,
right?
Good.
Yeah. I mean, it was a small dose, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be like a little stem or a piece of a cap.
And
I was having wildly different effects.
For sure you were weighing.
Yes,
okay.
I was weighing.
Okay.
I didn't have that little scale. Remember, we pulled out the tiny little scale and I could measure it down to the whatever less than a gram.
Yeah, 0.1 gram or so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you explained to me that it would be helpful to do something different.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you remember what that was?
Oh, I do, as a matter of fact. So mushrooms vary in their potency. They vary in their alkaloid content. They've, from mushroom to mushroom, there are varying amounts of psilocybin and psilocin. Some mushrooms are hot. You'll have a crop of mushrooms growing in a tub. You pull one mushroom out. If you could measure it, it would be screaming hot with psilocybin and psilocin. The next mushroom over, you pull it out. If you could measure it, it'll be just kind of like, meh, just kind of a dud mushroom. Okay, well, what do you do? Because you're not going to be testing each and every mushroom. The law of averages works in your favor. So what you want to do is actually take, let's say, 3 or 4 mushrooms, dehydrate them properly, and we can talk about that in a little bit. And then once you have those 3 or 4 mushrooms, grind them up. I have a designated grinder, grind them to a fine powder, and you are going to even out their potencies. And it would be highly unlikely for there to be 4 super hot mushrooms in a row going into your grinder, or 4 just kind of like mushrooms going into the grinder. So what you're probably going to get is 1 mushroom that's kind of hot, 1 mushroom that's kind of cold, and maybe 2 mushrooms that are typical or average. And that just works out perfectly. And then, once ground up, store properly. Stored properly means someplace dark. Try to remove moisture, so silica packets are your friend. And also just try to avoid heat and light. And if you do that, when ground, I count on the powder being good for about a month or so. But if you're growing your own mushrooms at home, you've got a ton of mushrooms. I mean, really, you've got more mushrooms than you're going to know what to do with. They make great presents at the holidays, by the way. Just saying.
This is good. You're giving me ideas.
Okay.
Dehydration.
Yeah. Real quick, do you want me to basically just do a walkthrough of the full cultivation process? Because I can do a Reader's Digest version, and if you want, I could even inoculate a grain bag at the end just to show you what that's like.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Reader's Digest version of the cultivation process. This is one of those situations where it probably makes more sense to be on the video rather than just listening to me talk about it. But first of all, you have a syringe that is filled with spores. Spores are legal in 48 states in the United States. Spores are legal here in Oregon, Washington, California, blah, 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 blah. They're legal in Florida. They are not legal in Idaho. This syringe here would basically be the same as having a syringe of crack cocaine. And yeah, it's bad. And also in Georgia, they are not legal in Georgia. Okay, but you have a syringe full of spores, again, commercially available on the internet. You take the syringe and you inject it into a bag filled with sterilized grain. You can sterilize grain at home, but it's better to buy it commercially because you know for sure it has been sterilized properly if you buy it commercially. You inject the spores into that bag. You put in about 2 to 3 cubic centimeters
There you go.
of spore solution. Sorry, speech impediment. Spore solution in there, and in about 2 or 3 weeks, oh, hey, look at that. That is mycelium that is working its way through the grain. And then in about 4 weeks or so, that bag is completely myceliated. And you can see that this is just 100% filled with mushroom mycelium. Okay?
Golden oyster.
Oh, golden oysters. This is my favorite oyster to grow.
So this is the spore you bought.
Yep.
Is for golden oyster.
Yeah. I mean, I buy all sorts of different mushroom spores. But
specific, you buy specific spores for specific mushrooms, correct?
Yeah. So if you want to talk about edible mushrooms, the easiest ones to grow are golden oysters and black oysters. Super easy. If you can't, you can actually grow an oyster mushroom on a book. You can grow it on toilet paper. You can grow it on a paper towel. It will basically eat anything made out of a wood product.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're also delicious. They're absolutely.
Now I know what to do with all the books I've read when I'm done with them.
I actually I'm going to do an art project where I grow a mushroom on a book, and the book is How to Grow Mushrooms.
I love that. I would like to see pictures when you're done.
Yep. That should probably be in about 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay,
Anyways,
great.
all right. So once you've got the bag, it's colonized, then you transfer it over to what's called substrate. Substrate is basically a fancy way of saying soil for mushrooms. You add it to the substrate. I'm going to hold up this tub.
The big tub is coming again.
Here's the tub again. I can't open it up because I just transferred this over and I don't want bacteria and yeast and stuff to land in here. But there's basically grain and substrate inside of here, grain and soil for mushrooms. Let's see, I transferred this over. I transferred this over about 3 days ago. In probably about a week and a half, this will be completely white. The mycelium will fill this entire tub. The substrate will go white. Once that happens, you start introducing oxygen because mushrooms breathe in oxygen and kick out carbon dioxide. You start giving them oxygen. That oxygen is a signal or a trigger, and that trigger is, hey, we've made it to the surface. It's time to start making mushrooms. And then, I was talking about this earlier. You'll start seeing pins, tiny baby mushrooms. And once you see pins, it's usually 1 to 2 weeks before you have full-fledged mushrooms in your tub. From start to finish, from that initial inoculation of a grain bag with spores to a tub having mushrooms growing on top of the mycelium, it's typically about 8 weeks. I've seen it take as little as 6 weeks. I've seen it take as long as 14 weeks, but 8 weeks seems to be what usually happens. So, it's a bit of a waiting game, but it's not awful. And what I have found is this is such a fun and fascinating hobby that all of a sudden you just start having tubs and tubs and tubs, and you're constantly growing mushrooms. And you're not doing it because you want to fill jars full of mushrooms or anything like that. It's just that the process is so interesting. And it's really exciting when you see those pins starting to pop up, and then you see the mushrooms actually starting to develop. And some mushrooms grow crazy fast.
You have some really beautiful photographs of...
Oh.
Most of them are the mushrooms you've grown, or I shouldn't say most of them, but I think I've seen a lot of your photography of the mushrooms you've grown.
Yeah, I would say probably 95% of my mushroom photography, it's mushrooms that I have grown. And if it's not a mushroom that I've grown, it's a mushroom that I have foraged for and harvested out in the real world.
Yeah.
And I do everything from, straightforward photography with mushrooms to micro photography. And let me just tell you, it's really fun pointing a macro lens at a mushroom. It's like an entire whole new world there. It's almost like going down into the Hobbit hole.
Yeah, and you share these beautiful photographs on Instagram, right?
They are on Instagram. We are at cultivatorclub.com. Cultivator is spelled CULTIV, the number 8, and then R, and then club. I know it's kind of like advertising agency spelling, but cultivatorclub.com on Instagram. And then we also make some of my prints available through our website. And then if there's someone who wants like a big print, a framed big print, shoot me an email, because we are starting to sell those as gallery prints.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous. I mean, they're so beautiful.
I've got one in the back. I hate to bring it out, but tell you what, if we get a break, I might pull it out. It's kind of hard because it's 3 foot by 3 foot. Well,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's gigantic. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
Maybe what we could do is, if you have a nice digital format of it, we can overlay it at the end of the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
So that people can see it.
Yep, I'll shoot that to you a little bit later on.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear this story you had with a Portland police officer about mushrooms. that was like, I need to hear this story.
Yeah. So I happen to know a police officer. He's with the Portland Police. And he also happens to know that I teach mushroom cultivation. He's totally cool with it. And one day I asked him, I said, so funny question, but, kind of off the record. Do the police even care if people are growing mushrooms at home? He said, no, this is Portland. We've got much bigger issues to deal with than someone growing mushrooms at home for personal use. Now, he said, if you've got a warehouse filled full of tubs and you're growing mushrooms, that's a completely different story, because you are growing mushrooms to sell. Okay, Side note here, that dude or gal who's got a warehouse full of mushrooms, that is probably ShroomBro420 on Reddit. Anyways, yeah, the police really... Ooh, boy, my screen froze in a really nasty way. Anyways, the police really do not want you selling mushrooms. Not out of a warehouse, and definitely not on West Burnside at a place called the Shroom Shop. Now, a few other things, though. He said, okay, for the most part, we really don't care if you're growing for personal use. Be aware. He said that as a policeman, he's had access to the evidence room. He said, every sample of street drug that has ever gone through the evidence room has tested positive for fentanyl. He said, doesn't matter what it is. He said,
oh my gosh.
He said, cocaine,
wow,
test positive for fentanyl. Xanax, tested positive for fentanyl. Weed, tested positive for fentanyl. And I said to him, weed tested? He said, cannabis that comes from a dispensary never tests positive for fentanyl. But if you're buying from Weed Bro 420 on the street, yeah, it tests positive.
Why is that? Is it,
It's
I
just,
mean,
well,
you might not know
I
the answer,
I
but
don't know the reason. I suspect it's a desire by the people who are selling to make, to make their offerings more potent, more powerful, more trippy, and also more addictive.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to have a customer buy weed from you once. It's another thing to have them need to buy from you.
Yeah. This is such a random comment, but it reminds me of this dream I had the other night.
Okay.
Because I have 2 dogs, and in my dream I was walking my dog, because in my dreams my dog is often there adventuring with me. We were walking through this park. It was a lovely day in dreamland. And then all of a sudden, you know how dreams can switch to something very sinister.
Oh yeah,
and dark.
You're flying or falling or something like that. Yeah.
My dog gets a hold of fentanyl.
What?
And it was just terrifying, I thought, because I keep seeing all of these comments on, the app next door about how dogs are getting sick or dying from fentanyl because it's just on the ground everywhere. And
Yeah. I mean,
tinfoil.
it is next door, and that's just
anyways,
like
that
the
was my
weirdest
dream.
app out there. What? Did you freeze?
So, okay.
No, you froze completely. So you disappeared for about 20 seconds.
Oh, I said, well, that was my dream.
Oh, okay.
Period.
Oh, okay.
I just felt like I should share that with you and the audience.
Yeah.
That I have nightmares about fentanyl.
All right. Well, lesson here. Don't buy drugs on the streets, kids.
Yeah. Haven't done that. Like, full transparency. I haven't done that since I was in college. And I'm glad I had my day where I experimented a lot, and I feel like I've got that out of my system and I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I do not have an addictive personality, because here I am trying God knows what, and I don't feel the need to do that recreationally anymore. Yeah. Not to say that I don't like microdosing for all of the other reasons, like you were describing using it for ADHD.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I am Mr. ADHD, 60-year-old dude who's got squirrel syndrome. And what I've found while microdosing is it just allows me to hunker down, to really just kind of put on the blinders, block out. I don't want to call it the outside world. I want, block out the surrounding world, block out all that is about me. And at the same time, just bring that noise that is in my head, that constant conversation internally, and just turn the volume down and actually just deep drill down into, let's say, Photoshop work or writing or photography or whatever, just to have that, that focus, that sustained focus that goes beyond 2 or 3 hours. Instead is more like 4 or 5 or even 6 hours, which for me is a modern miracle.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of us, it's a long time to sustain focus. I mean, I can't do that. Not sober anyways. Microdosed maybe. I'm curious, when you say that hyper-focused, or maybe not hyper-focused, but that longer sustained period of focus, is there a specific strain you're using or blend?
Oh, good question. So for the most part, I am strain agnostic, but I'm not species agnostic. So for example, Psilocybe eleni, our native psilocybe that, literally half mile away from here. This is a very clarifying mushroom. This is a very blinders on, stare at my laptop, Photoshop, Illustrator, vector files, write, whatever, and just hunker down and go 2, 3, 4 hours at least. There is a species of mushroom that is just starting to come into cultivation called Psilocybe natulescens. It's a mushroom from South Africa. It was discovered about 10 or 12 years ago. Incredibly easy to grow, possibly the easiest mushroom to grow out there. It is very potent, and again, it is very energizing. So if I microdose with Psilocybe natulescens, it's more than just the blinders on. It's almost like looking through a tube at my laptop or at Photoshop or basically the tasks in front of me. And I hunker down and I get shit done. I love it. I have been told that when I microdose with Psilocybe natulescens that I am very intense. So,
Good to know.
Yeah. And my response to that is, Yeah, but I'm getting stuff done. So,
So choose your moments.
yeah.
Know what you're going to do.
Yeah. And
be aware.
Yeah, and actually, this brings up a really interesting point. The technical definition of microdosing is that you're taking a quantity of a psychedelic substance that is having a sub-perceptual effect, meaning you're not supposed to feel it, but taken over a long period of time, it has beneficial effects such as reducing anxiety or stopping ruminations, et cetera, et cetera. I actually like feeling something from my microdose. I don't want a macrodose. I don't want the walls to melt. And I definitely don't want to be altered to the point that I don't feel safe getting into my car. But I do like feeling something. The best way to describe it is almost like 2 cups of coffee, one right after the other, to get that energizing hit, and then just deep focus. And again, the internal noise in my head, the volume goes down, the outside world or my surroundings kind of get pushed away, and I almost have like a tunnel vision towards what I need to do, and it's right in front of me, and I know the path.
And is that experience consistent for 5 hours? No. Does it slowly come on and then gradually dissipate?
Well, if we're talking psilocybe elenii, it's definitely 5 hours. This is quite a sustained microdose, or the microdose itself is very sustained. If we want to talk about psilocybin adolescence, that's typically about 2 or 3 hours for me. And if we want to talk about the cubensis species, and for the listeners out there, there's a variety of strains of psilocybe cubensis. There's Golden Teacher, Malabar, Coast, B+, yada, yada, yada. Most of them are the same. And again, about, for me, 2 or 3 hours where I really feel it. But even once I lose that tunnel vision or that focus, I feel as though there's this element of calm. And I feel as though just kind of the background noise around me is reduced in volume, and I really like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I'm not a medical professional. Everybody's body is different. Everybody will react differently to microdosing. Some people, again, it makes them sleepy. Some people actually get no effect at all, like absolutely nothing. Some people shouldn't get anywhere near it. But I'd say probably for about 50 to 60% of the population, there is a benefit. Choose your microdose well. Always use a scale. Never guesstimate. Never eyeball it. Never say, hey, that looks like about 0.1 gram. Get a scale out and measure. Start low and start slow, because you don't know how your body will react. So I always recommend that people start with 0.05 grams, 1/20th of a gram. See how your body reacts. If there's absolutely nothing, take it up to 0.1 gram. See how you feel after that. I do not like going beyond 0.2 grams, 1/5 of a gram. Once I get beyond that, for me, it's just a little bit too intense. Having said that, I know people who microdose with a full gram of mushrooms, which just boggles my mind.
Well, do you think that's because they built up a tolerance?
So here's the story, and it is a story. I've done a lot of different things in life. I've had a lot of different jobs. I've been a location sound mixer for documentaries. I've been a still photographer. I'm still a still photographer. I was on a project though a few years back, and we had a drone operator. He was the best drone operator I had ever seen in my life. He was unbelievable. He had this drone, and he was like weaving through trees, going straight up, dropping back down, going through branches, all sorts of stuff, mind-boggling stuff. And then I got into a conversation with him, and I could tell he was just, a little altered, if you know what I mean. And I said to him, hey, just wondering, but by any chance, are you mushroom friendly? He goes, oh, I microdose. Whenever I'm working my drone, I microdose. It's like, oh, really? That's interesting. How much do you microdose with? He said, oh, I microdose with 1 gram. And I said to him, you microdose with 1 gram of mushrooms? And he got really quiet and he said, I am the drone. And that's why he was so good. He was the drone.
Yeah, he became
Yeah,
one.
he became one with the drone. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, I really appreciate all the reminders to do your homework,
100%.
know your source,
Be safe.
be safe.
Super safe. Keep your liver safe. Keep your brain safe. Keep your emotions safe also. I mean, and that's something to consider. Some people microdose and they become extremely emotional. They become, microdosing can bring emotions that are buried deep inside and bring them up to the surface. And I've seen people have crying fits on 0.15 grams, like just tears pouring down. Now, you could argue that is an emotion and that is stress and that is trauma that needed to come to the surface. And I'm inclined to agree with that, but there's also the right time and the right place to bring those emotions to the surface. It's one thing to do it at home. It's another thing to do it at Safeway, in the frozen vegetable aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good caveats.
Yeah, good caveats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't underscore that enough that, Matt said it earlier multiple times. Don't listen to this podcast and then go out and forage for your own mushrooms. And please do not do that. Yeah. Please.
Hey, real quick, I want to address something about microdosing that's super important. So
yes,
I'm holding up a scale right now. By the way, you can get these on Amazon. They're like 15 or 20 bucks. Always measure your microdose. Always start low and slow. And always use grams as your units of measure. And then check to make sure that it is grams that is your unit of measure. There are horror stories out there of people who've heard about microdosing. And they've been told, oh, you should microdose with 0.1 gram, 1/10 of a gram. So they buy a scale. And they're not familiar with mushrooms, so they don't really know what they weigh. And they put a 0.1 on there, but it's set at ounces rather than grams. Okay. How many grams are in an ounce? Is it like about 28?
Something like
26, 28 anyways. So 0.1 ounce would be roughly 2.8 grams.
28.
Are you Googleizing right now?
Yeah, I'm Googleizing. 28.
Okay, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Kids, 2.8 grams is not a microdose. Okay? So, anyways, this gentleman that I know, he was in for a big surprise, and the walls got a little bit bendy and all that, and it's like, come on, guy, didn't it look a little weird to you? I mean, 2.8 grams. He said, I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. You don't know what it's supposed to look like. As a heads up, and this is just an approximation, but 0.1 gram of powdered mushrooms is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So you have that as a visual reference. Once again, always weigh your mushrooms. But, if you're putting powder out there and it looks like it's way beyond 1/4 of a teaspoon, chances are your scale is off or you're using the wrong units.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a really good clarification. I appreciate it. I wanted to know if there's anything. So you had the unconference at the very end of September. Yeah. What is on the horizon for 2024?
Oh, we have lots of events. We love doing events. Again, we love community. We love connection. And we also we love the interaction that takes place when you're out there with the public. So for example, at our last event, I said, hey folks, you got any questions? And someone raised their hand and said, so you're using grain bags. Here, I'm going to hold one up. I said, what kind of grain is in there? I said, oh, this bag right here, it's filled with rye. She said, well, if you grow mushrooms using rye grain, are your mushrooms gluten-free? And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good question. So I said, well, I don't know. By the way, the 3 most important words in the English language are, I don't know.
I don't know.
I said, I don't know. I will take some time later on to look that up and I will get back to you. So, we finished up the event. I get back to the house and then I just go deep down the Google hole. Guess what? If you grow mushrooms and you start them off using a gluten-containing grain of some sort, rye grain, wheat berry, your mushrooms will be contaminated with gluten. They won't have a whole lot in them, but they will have gluten. And for those folks who are exceptionally sensitive, yeah, it could trigger a reaction. The workaround, when you start off growing mushrooms, basically you need to grow them on a grain initially. Well, grain can be, see this little packet here of brown rice. Believe it or not, you can actually inoculate a bag of instant rice. You can use Uncle Ben's. It's kind of difficult. They contaminate easily, but you can use it. This bag right here, this is sorghum. Sorghum is gluten-free. I suspect you could use teft. If you ever go to an Ethiopian restaurant, you get that injera bread. Injera is made from teft flour. Teft is a gluten-free grain. By the way, you cannot use quinoa. Quinoa is not a grain. Quinoa is not a member of the grass family, so it does not work. And black beans do not work either. I know somebody who tried to inoculate a bag of black beans. It did not work. It was not good. Anyways, yeah, if your grain bag has gluten in it, your mushrooms will have gluten in it also.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Oh, we were talking about events. Yeah.
What's coming up in 2024?
Oh boy. So I don't want to jump the gun too much, but some friends of ours are opening up a psilocybin facilitation center. And maybe when the show is released, we can put it in the show notes, but I want to hold off for now. But some friends of ours are opening up a psilocybin facilitation center, and they're also going to have an event space within it. And so we will be teaching cultivation classes there. At the same time, folks who are listening, we love partnering up with people. We love collaborating with people to do cultivations and demonstrations. Myself, I don't drink. My business partner, Marie Rose, she does not drink. We would love to partner or collaborate with people who are doing mocktails, sober dinners, sober events. Those would be fantastic. By the way, quick detour here. It is amazing how many people who are mushroom friendly who are sober.
What do you think that's? I mean, if you were going to theorize, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think what happens is, and it's not an instantaneous process, but I do believe that there's just this slow realization that, I don't need alcohol. I don't need to drink. I don't have to do it to have a good time. And, here's the thing. So, I'm not a 12-stepper. I'm not an alcoholic. I can actually drink a beer or a bourbon. I don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. And, it's the same thing with my business partner, Marie Rose. She can drink, but she doesn't care to. And I see that with so many people who are microdosers or who go beyond that. They themselves just get beyond alcohol. Again, not medical advice. Okay. N equals 1. But this is just a phenomena that I see over and over and over.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Look, enough about me. Let's talk about you. Do you drink?
I do. I really like wine.
Okay.
I love the way it tastes. I love wine. I also love beer. Beer and wine. I'm not interested in liquor. I've had too many bad experiences with liquor in college, and
that's where most people have their tequila incident.
Tequila. It just never really stuck with me. But beer and wine, I just really like the taste of. I think more than anything, and I don't drink to get drunk. But I do enjoy, just like you love your coffee, I love my espresso. I also love my wine and my beer.
And, again, if you can handle it, if you don't have any issues, there's nothing wrong with that. I genuinely enjoy the taste of bourbon, but it just doesn't mean anything to me, though. It's like, okay, I like the flavor. All right. But I also like the taste of ginger beer. Okay.
Yeah, to each his own. What floats your boat, do it.
Exactly.
So this episode, Matt, will be live the first week of January.
Okay.
So if you do have anything you want to put in the show notes for that.
Well, ironically enough, tomorrow morning I'm headed to that psilocybin facilitation center to have a long chat.
Yeah.
So
That's exciting.
I will know within 24 hours just when, where, why, and how we will be doing events.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, help you socialize that and definitely make people aware of how to find that location in that space. That would be great. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with? Any takeaway?
Ooh.
Anything you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask you?
The big message I want to put out there is be safe. If you're going to go out foraging for mushrooms, know 100% what you are foraging for. Not 99%, 100%. You look at that mushroom and you say to yourself, oh, that is a Psilocybe elenii, that is a lion's mane mushroom, that is a hedgehog mushroom, whatever. You know what it is that is eventually going to go in your mouth. Okay? At the same time, be safe by growing your own. Okay? Don't rely on ShroomBro420 on Reddit or that weird dude on Craigslist who's offering mushrooms, because that's a honeypot. But he's also that weird dude on Craigslist. Honest to God, just be safe. Really, it's not worth affecting your health majorly for the sake of a mushroom. It's just not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, real quick, do you want me to do a quick grain bag inoculation as a demo?
Yeah. What is a rain bag?
All right. So here's the grain bag.
Oh, the grain bag. I thought you said rain bag.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I do voice to text, it often thinks I'm saying green bag.
Oh, yeah. Voice to text.
I love voice to
text. Many funny messages with that.
Yeah. All right. Let me just get my supplies and I'll give a quick overview. Again, this is one of those things that works on video. Watching me or listening to me describe it's kind of like, yeah. So, all right. We have our syringe filled with spores. I'm going to hold it up and you can possibly, there. Can you see that little clump right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are spores.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shake the syringe. And this will help loosen them up and just distribute the spores throughout the syringe. I have got a grain bag here. On the grain bag, I'm holding this up to the camera, there is a little patch of rubber. That is silicone rubber. It's what's called the injection port. When I stick the syringe through that rubber hole or rubber patch, the spore solution will go into the grain bag. When I pull the needle out, the rubber will heal up behind itself so bacteria and yeast can't get into the bag. Sterility is super important because we really don't want to be introducing bacteria or yeast into the bag. If we get yeast into that bag, we make beer. And we literally make beer. You combine yeast with any sort of grain and you're turning it into beer really fast. In fact, when I have had a yeast contamination, I know it right away because it's like...
Hoppy?
Yeah, you don't smell the hops because obviously there's no hops, but there's just that, it's almost like a light Pilsner scent. Yeah, it's really obvious when it takes place.
Good to know.
All right, so we need to maintain sterility. We do this with alcohol wipes. By the way, if you purchase a cultivator kit from us, cultivatorclub.com, our cultivator kits come with grain bags. They come with alcohol wipes. They have what you need to maintain sterility. We also have substrate mix within the kit. Lastly, you need a lighter of some sort. I like this lighter because the dog on it looks a lot like my dog. George. Yeah.
George the dog.
George the dog. All right. By the way, if you pop onto Reddit, you will see people who are getting little spritzer bottles, mister bottles, and they're filling them with rubbing alcohol, and then they are spraying everything down. That is the worst idea in the world. And the reason why it's the worst idea in the world is, okay, you've got that spritzer bottle, you're spraying everything down, and then you pull out your lighter, and
alcohol.
Yeah, and there are these amazing videos on YouTube of people losing their eyebrows.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's comedy and tragic at the same time, but that's the best comedy of all. Yeah, all right. So I've got some alcohol wipes here. Here's some alcohol wipes. I've opened this up. First, I'm going to wipe down the very front of the grain bag. You people just listening to this, I'm sorry, this is going to be torture.
What is that? There's like a word for that where people like listen to sounds.
I believe it's called AMSR.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. That's what it reminds me of.
So we're going to wipe down the grain bag very carefully using this alcohol wipe. There we go. There you go, buddy. Okay.
There you go,
There you
buddy.
go, buddy. All right. And then, okay, here's our syringe. I'm going to pop the cap off, and then there's a big honking needle.
Whoa.
Yeah. In fact, so this is a funny thing. I check in with our customers and just say, hey, how'd your cultivation go? And I would say 10% never get started because they get scared by this needle.
Yeah.
Which usually when that happens, I just say, please jump onto Zoom with me really quick and I'm going to walk you through it. Anyways, I'm wiping down the needle with an alcohol wipe. I have another alcohol wipe at the ready. All right, I'm going to sterilize the end of the needle with this lighter. And then I'm going to get the tip red hot. There we go. I'm going to take the another alcohol wipe. I'm going to cool it down. Oh, here's more of that ASMR.
Oh, interesting sound.
Yeah, that's the needle being cooled down. Now this is a little difficult with two hands. I'm going to wipe in front. Oh, I have to wipe the needle again. I just hit my laptop with it. All right, and right, here we go, and boom. And then I'm going to inject about 3 cc's, which on a standard syringe is about 1 inch. 2, 3. And then I'm going to get that alcohol wipe. And I'm going to pull the needle out. And I'm just going to hold the alcohol wipe over the silicone port for about 10 seconds. It takes about 10 seconds for the port to heal up. And this way, if any bacteria tries to go into the bag, it's going to be going through that alcohol wipe, which will kill off the bacteria. That should be good. And then I just give it a light massage to help distribute the spore solution throughout the bag. Okay. I don't go crazy because you can actually tear open the bag if you massage it too hard. So just a light massage. There you go. And then what I do is I get out a Sharpie and I always write down the date. What's today? The 7th?
November 7th. Yes.
And this is, what is this? Oh, that's a black oyster. All right. And then I write down black oyster. And I do this because I'm inoculating bags all the time. And if I didn't write down exactly what it is that I have, or when I inoculated it, I'm going to lose track. And I found that Post-it notes tend to fall off of these things. So I just get out a Sharpie and write it down. And then with this bag, what I'll do is I'll stick it someplace where, like, it's dark and warm. Above a refrigerator, if you have a cabinet above your refrigerator, that is the perfect spot. And again, in about 2 weeks or so, you'll start to see colonization like this. In about a month, it'll be fully colonized, and then you transfer over to substrate. What do you do with your syringe of spores? Because, you've still got about another 8 cc's left. First of all, you cap it. Super important. Put the cap back on. Put it in a Ziploc. And then put it in the meat drawer of your refrigerator. Your meat drawer is typically around 45 degrees or so. That is the perfect storage temperature for spores. And this syringe will be good for at least 6 months kept in the meat drawer. Yeah, wow. So I can do at least 2 more inoculations, maybe even 3. Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the other reason for growing your own mushrooms at home. Again, you're going to get 3 inoculations out of this, syringe. Yeah. And, brief moment of capitalism, every cultivator kit comes with 3 grain bags. So you could actually get 3 full cultivations off of 1 syringe.
I love it.
There we go.
Matt, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for educating us on so many facets of mushrooms. Yeah. It's been really cool.
And thank you for just, having a nice free-flowing structure and conversational. I love just, the back and forth and, honestly, I love talking to people. I really do.
Yeah. Well, it shows. I remember the first time I met you, we talked, I think we were there for, 4 hours.
At least. And, obviously we talked about more than just mushrooms. Yeah. I think we spent a lot of time talking about food. Oh, it's a funny thing. Whenever I do mushroom related stuff, especially where I'm on camera or I'm presenting to a group, I always wear this very nice artifact apron, and it's kind of become just my thing. And so if you see photos of me at events where I'm talking about mushroom cultivation or microdosing or whatever, I am wearing this apron. I also do cook a ton. I cook so much, it's crazy.
What do you like to cook?
What do I like to cook?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, of course, I like to cook things with mushrooms. Let's talk about mushroom risotto.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay. We're moving into the fall and winter, and in the Pacific Northwest, well, the commercially available mushrooms out there, they're the shiitakes, the criminese, all that. But there are these mushrooms called black trumpets. They look like a black trumpet. I mean, they're basically a black chanterelle mushroom. They have the most amazing flavor. It's almost truffle-like. And so when I do my risotto, it's got the manchego cheese in it. It's got, of course, garlic, white wine, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of oregano. But I've got typically shiitake mushrooms, crimini, or the brown mushrooms from the grocery store. And then I add in those black trumpets. And there is just this truffle-like aftertaste to it that is unbelievable. And the best thing is that flavor just gets stronger as it sits overnight. You know how you cook up a dish and the next morning you've got, just even better food waiting for you.
Yeah.
So I take that risotto and I make a little patty out of it. And then I put it in a hot skillet with some really nice French butter. And I cook it until it's got this really nice brown crust on one side. Flip it over, get that brown crust on the other side. Pull it out. Maybe put a little bit of lemon aioli on top of it.
That sounds really good.
It's really good.
You sound, you could be a chef. That sounds fancy.
Candace keeps telling me to put together a cookbook.
I like this idea. It could be mushroom inspired. It could be just all...
Well, it could be all mushroom, or it could be really diverse. And, quite honestly, I like diversity in my food. I mean, yes, I like my mushroom risottos, but I like to make my own nut butter. By the way, 1 cup of cashews, 1 cup of pecans, half cup of walnuts, put in the oven at 325 for exactly 12 minutes, pull out, let cool down, put into a food processor, add a half teaspoon of salt, add 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, pulse until it starts to break apart, and then just hold that button down and keep it going and going and going until you've got a really nice nut butter. I guarantee it will be the best nut butter you have ever had in your life.
Well, you're kind of describing my favorite nut butter, which has those 3 nuts in it. And I buy it at the store. It's the artisanal. I think it's Artisan Artisanal. Have you seen that brand? It's like $15 for a jar that's maybe 6 ounces.
Okay.
So I think I should take this recipe and run with it. Well, everyone, that concludes another amazing episode of Outside the Studio. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something new, maybe remembered something old, maybe felt inspired to apply something to your life. You can hear my dog in the background. She's doing a little happy dance. So Daisy enjoyed it. Anyhow, I wanted to just pop in here to wrap us up to say a couple of things. Number one, I have such an amazing team that helps me put these podcasts together. Without them, I wouldn't, be able to bring these amazing conversations to you. So thank you to my producer, my director of creative services, my sound editor, my engineer, Consistency Media. Don't know what I would do without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the amazing creation and artistic musical genius, Drew Lovern. Thank you so much for putting together this music specifically for Outside the Studio. So unique to the show, only place you're ever going to hear it is right here. Thanks, you guys. You make my world go round. Stay well, everyone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, share on the socials, especially if it's a show that you think, hey, this could help somebody else. That's what this is all about, right? We're sharing information so that we're better, so that we're inspired, so that we're lifting each other up. and we're learning how to be in this world, living on this planet to the best of our ability, sharing information and inspiring one another. And that's my hope. That's my hope for the show. Take care.